Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right, welcome, Fade to Black. How you doing? How you doing? Today's Wednesday, June 5th, 2024. Let's do this, man. Now, check this out. We are 3 shows away, including tonight, from our 2,000th show. And that is happening on Monday. I've got a full celebration planned. And so get ready. But Monday is our 2,000th show. Holy crap. And we're not going to celebrate again to 3,000. Wow. Wow. That's nuts. That's nuts. That's a long ways off. But Monday is our 2,000th show. Incredible. And what a great week we've had on Fade to Black, continuing tonight, of course, with Suzy Hansen. And Monday we had Andrew Gallimore, and Tuesday, last night, Freddie Levy was with us. Tonight, Susie's here. Tomorrow night, it's Bigfoot and Cryptids with Eric Altman to wrap up the week. And then we will get ready for our big anniversary show on Monday. Absolutely incredible. Now, I have 5 major events coming up for the second half of 2024. And Disclosure Fest, Stairway to the Stars at Castaic Lake here in Los Angeles. That's going down summer solstice weekend, June 21st through the 23rd at Castaic Lake. You can go and check out everything at disclosurefest.org. We've got stages. We have the beach. We have camping. We've got seminars. Get your learning on. It's going to be great. We have Billy Carson's going to be there. We have 19 Keys is going to be there. A huge list of speakers. And of course, I'm hosting all weekend long. So come and hang out with us there. Then right after that is the 2024 Conscious Awards in Miami, Florida, with Billy Carson and Forbidden Knowledge. And that is the weekend of August 3rd and 4th. And that is a full weekend. We've got a conference. We've got a VIP yacht cruise. We have an all-star basketball game. And we have the awards going down on Sunday. Tickets and information are below. Then Contact at Sea. That cruise is going to Alaska. That is in September 6th through the 13th. Tickets and information are below. I think it's close to selling out. You need to go and book that now. The same thing for Egypt. I'm heading back in October like I do every year. And that cruise is sold out. And so you can get on the waiting list. If there's any availability, you can find out by clicking on the link below. The Peru-Bolivia tour with Brian Forrester in November is also sold out, but you can get on the waiting list. The links are below, and that is November 15th through the 27th. And I'm so excited about that. Last night on the show with the conversation with Freddie Levy about his favorite sites around the world, and it's Peru. And I can't argue with him and on that point. And you need to get to Peru. So get on the waiting list and come in and hang out with us. It's just going to be an incredible, incredible journey. Tonight, Suzy Hansen joins us. We're going to be talking about her life of ET contact. Now, I chose the title of the show. And over the years, 2,000 shows, I've had many guests on that have had contact and experiences for most of their lives and also their families. And I've always titled those shows A Life of ET Contact. Tonight is going to be just that. She's going to be discussing her UFO encounter that led to that lifelong alien contact and missing time. We're going to be talking about ETs, contact, alien culture. We're going to discuss spirituality and, of course, consciousness. Maybe get some science in and some physics. And she is an author. You can check out all of her books. She's a researcher. She's an experiencer. And she is also spent, are you ready? 50 years of investigating the UFO phenomena. And I say that about myself every day on the show. I've been doing this for 50 years. 50 years Susie has been at this. So tonight we're going to have an open conversation about all of that. She founded UFOCUS New Zealand Research Network in 2000, playing a pivotal role in the release of the New Zealand MOD UFO Files. She co-founded the CommunicatorLink, supporting experiencers and abductees. And also she is a key member of ICER, the International Coalition for Extraterrestrial Research. All of that and much more. Her links are below over on our website and on social media. And I would like to welcome, very excited about the show, for the first time to Fade to Black, Suzy Hansen. And there she is right there from New Zealand. Susie? Now, wait. Hold it. It's tomorrow.
I'm in the future.
Yeah, you're in the future, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I love that when that happens. And one of my, if I ever get successful, I want to have like 5 birthdays, right? Just fly back and forth, right? Just go back and forth, because that's possible, right? Yeah, I could fly there, have my birthday, fly back to LA and have my birthday, and then head east. Would I go east or would I go back west? Which way would I go for a 3rd birthday? You don't know. Oh, I think we lost your audio. Say hello. Yeah, we lost your audio. We lost Susie's audio. Everything was fine, Susie. Keep talking to me. You can hear. Oh, now you're back.
Good.
Okay, so you don't have to tell everybody what you just clicked on. That's our secret. Okay, that's our secret. It's our secret. Yep. Susie, you get the first time guest disclaimer. So let's get that out of the way. Susie, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where that conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, but we're going to end as friends. You have to accept, and then we can continue. Okay. Oh, man, we lost your audio again. Oh, no. Okay, it's cutting in and out. Susie, you have to keep talking. Yeah. Oh, no. See, we had a brilliant sound check. Everything was just fine. And it sounded great. Susie sounded better than me. And now we go live and we've got issues. So Susie, yeah, don't know what's going on. Don't have you. We do not have you. Oh, I'm looking here. Hold on. Okay. You're muting yourself. See the unmute button? I see here, it says, okay, don't click on it. Now talk to me. No, we don't have you. Yeah. You've muted yourself again automatically. Okay, Susie, let's do this. I want you to leave the studio and then come back. Leave the studio and come back. And I will just sit here and ramble. How's that? What was I actually had something that I was going to say today. Oh. Okay. All right. Can we talk? I think I'm going to do a post, maybe a video. I'm not sure. But I am in the middle of a cleanse. Okay. Now, I do this a couple of times a year. This time around, I'm doing 2 different products. One is a drink and another is a capsule, 2 capsules. And it's 14 days for both. 14, not 3 days, right? Not 1 day, not 3 days, not 2 days, 14 days. All right. So I'm 5 days in on this cleanse. And that's not what is important. What is important here is because of my time in the bathroom, which is slowed down, by the way. But anyway, I have reached the end of the internet. That's right. I made it. I made it to the end of the internet. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. And now, so I know what you're asking yourself. You're saying, so Jimmy, what's it like? What's it like when you get to it? Is like the video game Silent Hill. That's what I entered. That's right. I have reached the end of the internet. Okay, we've got Susie back. Susie, talk to me.
Hi, Jimmy. Any luck?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Good.
Okay. So let's get this rolling here, and we've got a lot to cover tonight. And to say, 50 years of research, and we can go back, and I love doing this because you can see the different phases of things over time, types of craft, types of abductions, types of experiences, the information that is shared, what the military is doing. Of course, the response of different governments around the world, and which has always gone on. And things have changed drastically to where we are today. Today, we're in a spot that we've always wanted to be in, and it seems like we're entering a new phase. But it's never been always been this kind of party, right? For people that are just coming in to this community because of Fox News, right? Or the New York Times or whatever, they think that this is a new phenomenon and that right now is the way it's always has been. That's not the case, is it? Things have changed, haven't they?
Absolutely. And think about what it's been like down here in New Zealand. At the time that I was having my initial contact experiences and starting off in this subject, we only had 2.5 million people in our country. So, there was nothing to gauge it against. We didn't have, in terms of contact, we didn't have the input that people in the States had. We were completely on our own. People were experiencing something that was out of the box. There was no one to turn to. No one had any information about it. You were labeled as crazy if you were even silly enough to talk about it in those days. So things have changed a lot, but some attitudes have not changed. But I agree, we can itemize each phase over the years, and I don't know if we're where we want to be now. I don't actually like where we are now. I think there's still a long way to go before this subject is easily accepted. There's a lot of curiosity at the moment, but there's still not a lot of belief in some areas, and that's we're looking for belief that's based on facts and information. And unless that information is allowed to get out there, which it often doesn't get out to the right places in terms of contact, then we haven't moved forward too far in some areas.
Well, that doesn't sound that bad. When you say you don't like where we are now, in a general sense, what is bothering you? Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people are saying they don't know what to trust. So, people new to the subject are looking to find out about it, and they want some details that are kosher, that are informative and not based on someone's pet theory or whatever. So there's a lot of that around. I mean, there's a lot of researchers who have pet theories on things, and so they take off diving down that avenue. And even scientists will ignore some data if it suits them to, or if they've got a pet idea, and I could give a perfect example of that revolves around me. But I think trust is lacking in many areas at the moment. People don't know. They go to the internet and it's just a mass of stuff that they could look at, and they don't know where to start. So I'm actually, in the last couple of years, I have had hundreds of emails from people saying, can you give me a list of good things to look at? So I have been compiling a list, although I don't like to be promoting this one or that one, but people are having to use some discernment, and if you're new to the subject, you don't know what to discern. So I think we're going through a period that's quite muddled, and I hope that we can come out of that, and people will begin to make some sense of what we know and what we don't.
I'm not, I don't like to be controversial. Okay, I don't. I have a very open mind, and I listen to everybody. But let me just say this to your point. I appreciate researchers less when they say, I'm right, they're wrong. And when I hear a researcher, I'm like, you don't know anything. You can have an opinion, right? That's fine, but you don't know anything. None of us do. We're going through this journey together, and we're trying to listen to everybody and collect as much knowledge as we can. But if you say that you're the gatekeeper, or you have the secrets, or you know everything, and this person's wrong and this person's wrong, and we should only listen to you, that freaks me out. And we're hearing that more and more now. And that's simply not the truth, is it?
No, it's not. And I mean, I'll give you an example of that. Something I experienced on a craft I labeled as the White Room, because this experience of consciousness happened in this extraordinary room that just seemed to expand and expand. And I hadn't met anyone else who had experienced this. So, we can experience something that is profound and has a profound effect on us, but we don't understand it. And so we don't know about it. We can describe what happened, but we don't know why, and we don't know how it happened. And I've since found two people who've experienced the White Room. One of them is Jeff Salver, who's just republished his book. And so we've had some really good discussions trying to make sense of it, and what happened to him in the White Room, what happened to me in the White Room, and then there's some other people we've contacted about it as well. So we're putting together what we know, but there's so much we don't know. We can't get into the ET's mind and see what they were trying to achieve. We can only make an assumption about it, and that could be wrong. So we've got a massive amount of time to go through. People say, oh, we're ready for disclosure, but okay, so disclosure happens and they say they're here and they're walking amongst us and we need to talk to them, etc. But there's still so much we don't know, and so much that we need to understand before we could even try to talk to them as a civilization. And there's so much about ourselves that we need to study and maybe improve on before we can do that as well. So yes, theories are good, and it's good to examine them, but if people become too hard and fast on them, then it really does upset the apple cart.
Well, I think it's individual. The experience is individual for everyone. And now, as broad of a stroke of a statement as that is, when you really think about it, I take my own experiences, my own stuff, won't spend any time there right now, but they're different from you know what I mean? Everything is different. And I can't sit here and say that, my experiences or my knowledge that's it and that's the end. No, I've done thousands of interviews and I've got thousands of different experiences, and mine is just as different as everybody else's. So let's throw it into a big pile and see what we've got. That's what we do, right?
Well, I think that there are some commonalities that people do tend to frequently describe, which most researchers are aware of and experiencers. But then beyond that, there's this massive information and data. And I think we need to look at everyone as an individual, and maybe ET has contacted that person for a reason, and that reason pertains to that person alone. And it could be a genetic reason, it could be a healing reason, it could be to do with consciousness, it could be they want them to do something for them or understand the way the person thinks for some reason. So I think there's a huge range of reasons why they contact us and why we have this wide variety. And also it's how the individual perceives the experience, because many people perceive the experience as positive and transformative, but there are just as many who don't. So we need to understand what causes that variance of opinion there. So we're really only in kindergarten in terms of understanding how this all fits together and what we can do with it, because that's the important thing. If there's going to be disclosure, what do we do with this information? How do we define it? How do we categorize it so that we can make something out of it that is useful for us as humanity?
Should we be a little, we all want disclosure, right? And disclosure to everybody may mean something different. Okay, I get that. I understand that. My version of it, well, it would be nice, but I've kind of already gotten it. But that's not fair to the people that need it, right? There's a difference there, right? Yes. And I totally get those out there that anything short of, Susie, anything short of a live White House, right, Oval Office emergency break-in announcement, aside from that, right, ET is here, we are not alone in the universe, anything short of that is not disclosure. Right? So many need that. That's what they need, so they can just back up and go, okay, I can move on now. Right? And that it's interesting that we need to kind of be careful what we wish for.
Yeah. I agree with you that some people need some kind of guidance from above or from something that they have some respect for. It's quite different, I think, outside of the US, and I say that quite respectfully. It's amazing what happens in the US in terms of the UFO field and the research that's done. But, for countries outside of the US, I don't think disclosure holds quite the same draw card as it does in the US. In the US, people talk about disclosure, and often that means the release of a lot of files and documents and admissions and all of that sort of thing, at very much a governmental or agency kind of level. But disclosure elsewhere, I think, centers more around the acceptance of UFOs in our skies, our wonderment as to what they are. Be nice to have our government say that they are real and exist, but also I think there's a bit more of an emphasis in many countries now is coming on to contact. And so, I think we all view in different countries view it differently. For example, New Zealand has, when they released their files, said that anything that's in our skies can be, if it's not an aircraft, can be explained as a misidentified aircraft or a natural phenomenon. And this is quite extraordinary given the massive amount of documentation we have in New Zealand on UFO sightings going back to about 1865, I think. So, it's how we view disclosure. Some people need permission. Some people, like many experiencers, feel for them it's already happened because they've had contact. They don't need to know anything about released papers or anything like that. So everyone is at different levels of understanding and expectation of the subject. And I think that's where a massive pitfall lies ahead of us and how we breach all of these gaps.
When we look at, and I understand this perception with the rest of the world, the perception of Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the United Kingdom and their relationship to the United States is a special one, and that each one of those countries kind of follows the United States, sometimes blindly, right? Okay, I get that perception. I do. It's not the case, but that's the perception, right? But that's certainly not the case when it comes to UFOs. Right, because we have the Pentagon and the Congress and the Senate, and we have measures and the NDAA and laws. Things are moving, but it's not that way in New Zealand. It's not that way in Australia. It's not that way in the UK, and it's certainly not that way in Canada. Why is it so different with all of those countries versus the way the United States government is handling things?
Well, I think you got to realise that Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK are the Commonwealth countries, and then there's America, the US, and of course we're all part of the Five Eyes surveillance agreement. New Zealand is part of that, Australia, Canada, UK. So there are probably agreements on the table that many of the public don't know about. That is private and confidential, but I also think that those countries are sitting there waiting to see what happens in the United States, and then there may be some follow-on. We do know for sure that the US has come out during the times when we've had some pretty hot UFO activity in New Zealand, for example, the Kaikoura Lights in 78, 79. The government was very much influenced by the states and visitors coming out to New Zealand to talk about the UFO problem. So, I think there's a bit of following suit here and waiting to see what happens next before any action is taken. But in terms of releasing papers and files, I think they're all pretty much following the same track. America has come out ahead of the other countries, and it's this wait and see attitude that we are observing here and in Australia now.
So let's back up now. Let's go to the reason why you're here. Right? What happened? Take us through that first experience and walk us through that and how it changed your life.
Well, I've talked about this many times, actually. When I was 20, I was in my first year of school teaching, so I was living in a part of New Zealand that's rolling countryside and lots of sheep stations. And I was teaching in one of the small cities there. I had gone down to a friend's sheep station for a weekend, and one of my flatmates had also gone to a sheep station nearby where he had a friend. And so when he picked me up at around 4:30 on a Sunday afternoon, it was autumn, lovely, sunny, warm afternoon, bright sunshine. Off we went on the back country road, which he decided not to go on the main highway, which I found surprising. And when he said we're going the back country road, my stomach lurched. So there was some kind of psychic recognition going on there that something wasn't quite right. So off we go on this road. Normally takes a couple of hours to get through to the city of Hastings, and we'd been on the road for about half an hour. Came down out of some low hills and saw ahead of us two very bright lights side by side above a hill. Several kilometres away. We initially thought, well, that's a helicopter or it's a agricultural aircraft coming into land on a farm for the night. So when the lights suddenly disappeared, we didn't take too much notice because we thought that the aircraft had changed direction. We could no longer see the landing lights. But then, to our shock, these same lights appeared right adjacent to us over the hills, maybe a kilometre away. That made us bring the car to a halt and look at them. And then they clicked out again as if someone had flicked off a light switch and appeared back where we had originally seen them. At this point, we broke into discussion, which rapidly became argument as to what it was. My flatmate was a scientist, and And so he believed it was a helicopter. And when I pointed out logical things like helicopters can't fly that fast, that they instantaneously disappear from one spot and appear in another, he wasn't very happy about that and just insisted it was a helicopter. So we kind of dropped the subject when they disappeared again, waited a minute, couldn't see anything, and carried on. A few seconds later, he said, I don't know what they are, whatever it is, it's coming up behind us. So I stuck my head out my open window and was just about blinded by this massive white light, elliptical shape, wider than the road, coming up behind us and came over the top of the car. The light was so blindingly bright, it was painful to look at. You were squinting your eyes down narrow to be able to see anything at all. It was accompanied by this kind of graunching sound. People say UFOs don't make any noise, but there's plenty of us who have heard them make quite a noise.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a terrible, terrible sound. And it felt as if something was vibrating right through your whole being, as if you were going to break into a million little pieces and explode. So the light was bright and everything seemed to have slowed down. So we get a little bit of that what they call the Oz factor effect, where I felt slightly numb. I couldn't move properly. It looked as if everything was in slow motion as I tried to move my hand, turn my head to look at my flatmate, who was no longer driving the car. He was leaning against the door jamb with his eyes shut.
What was the car stopped?
It was stationary at that point, yes.
Okay, and good. Not good if it's moving and he's
no.
Right. And, okay.
So the next thing I was aware of was this screaming sound, and of course I later realised it was me. And the car lifted off the road in the same way as you get that feeling in your stomach when you're in an aircraft and it takes off. Sometimes you get that drop feeling. And it was being lifted off the ground, and there was a feeling of flotation. And then I must have passed out as he had, or been switched off, as we know happens now with experiencers. And I didn't remember anymore until it was as if someone had made this loud clapping noise that woke me up. And I felt like I'd been asleep, didn't know where I was or what was happening. Wind was blowing my long hair all over the place, and it was cold and it was dark, and I felt as if the car was floating. And then I heard my flatmate start swearing as he came to, and the next minute the car hit the ground, the lights came on, the engine started, it seemed to be in a low gear, and off we went, heading straight towards a one-way bridge. And we were at the far end now of the 2.5 kilometre straight that we had been in what seemed like a few seconds ago. Realising it was dark, the terror, absolute terror set in of what had happened here and why was it dark and where the hell were we? So the arguing and shouting started again as to what had happened and why we were in the situation we were in. We were both extremely thirsty. Our hands and underarms were sweating like we were in some kind of trauma state. And eventually we lapsed into silence because we had no answers and we just wanted to get home. So we got home and our flatmate said we were 90 minutes later than what they had expected us. Our dinner was in the oven, completely ruined. They asked a lot of questions and we could not answer them because when we said we saw this light and we think it did something to the car and then suddenly it was dark, they all just laughed their heads off. We're talking about people in their early 20s and it was just hilarious to them. What was wrong with us? Had we been drinking? And so we went to our rooms and that was it. Tried to get some sleep and I thought about it all night, actually. Over a period of weeks, I tried to talk to my flatmate about it, and every time I raised the subject, he became angry. furious, in fact, telling me to be quiet, and it was just a fast-moving helicopter. Didn't I know that? Every time I raised the fact it was dark when we came to, he had no answer and he would stride away. He eventually left the flat because I guess it was just too difficult having this young woman hounding him with questions all the time. To me, a UFO was in my reality as the most likely explanation, because I'd seen one when I was 8 with my family. He had never experienced anything or seen anything, and it went against his education as a scientist. He wasn't even curious about it. He just didn't want to know about it. And I think that's what many experiencers have had to face, that kind of silence, wall of antagonism and derision. And you're left coping on your own. And from then on for years, I couldn't stop thinking about this. And I immediately basically started seeking out other people I've heard of who had UFO sightings, farmers, shepherds on sheep stations, truck drivers, you name it. And I'd go marching off asking if I could interview them. And that's how I really started in the UFO sighting side of it. And it was some years before I met people who actually said, I think I've had some kind of experience.
Now, let's unpack all of that. Okay, I've got a whole list of questions now. And the first one, because this, in a sense, like we were talking about earlier, this is kind of classic, right? Right? You've got it's got all the elements of something that we're very familiar with. Things are different too as well. But for you, what did you remember? I mean, immediately after that, was everything completely conscious?
Up until the point when I felt the car lifted off the ground, yes, it was all conscious. And then when I came to and found myself the feeling of floating, like the car was going like this, and it was dark, yes, that was conscious then too.
Now, it sounds both cool and terrifying at the same time.
It
right?
was.
Yeah. It sounds like something I would want to experience, but maybe not, right? It's like it's both. And so for you, was it interesting or was it scary?
At the time, it was terrifying, and for about 2 years afterwards, and during which I continued to have the same sort of thing happen to me on 2 or 3 occasions, and it was terrifying, really terrifying. I became really scared when my husband and I moved. I was married by then, and when we moved to a remote coastal area. And trucks, sheep trucks would come along our roadway where our house was near the school. And so late at night, you'd have lights shine on the window and you'd have these kind of broaching sounds as they went past with trailers and changing gear, and a humming sound, which was so similar to what I'd heard. And I would be scared. I'd be looking through the curtains, turning the lights off so nothing could see me. I was jumpy like a scared rabbit. It was quite clear now that I'm older and I look back, I was suffering from traumatic stress. And I would immediately have those same qualities where my mouth would go dry, my palms would sweat, my underarms would sweat, all those symptoms of PTSD, I guess. Mm-hmm. So for a while I was still experiencing these similar things in this coastal community, it was terrifying. Initially, I did not know or realize that New Zealand was just at the beginning of the 1977 to 80 UFO flap, which was worldwide. That's a time of massive amounts of sightings and contact experiences worldwide. And I hadn't heard about that in New Zealand. I was just this young teacher with a husband up on some coastal area wondering what the hell was happening to me. And he was quite sure I was going crazy, didn't want to know about it, wondered what sort of
Susie, let me jump in right there, if I may. you look like a school teacher.
Everyone
Right?
tells me that.
Right. Well, that's okay. So, and you've got this demeanor, and I love that about you. But the other side of this is, who else knew? It's not like you can, tell your students about this. Maybe you did. I don't know, but you
No.
can't, right? You can't.
No.
You can't
No.
blow the image, right?
No, and so what I did was I put my ear close to the ground, and I soon found that in the coastal community there were crayfishermen who had seen strange lights out over the sea, who'd seen UFOs just go cruising past them when they were out crayfishing in the early hours of the morning. And I was sitting in the staff room one day, and the principal's wife started talking about this, how she'd got up to go to the bathroom in the night, and she'd seen all the hills behind her house just lit up with the whitest and brightest light. And she thought, wow, what beautiful moonlight. And being a kind of romantic person, she went and woke her husband up and said, you've got to come and have a look at this moonlight. And he said, there's no moon tonight, and rolled over and went back to sleep. So she went out to have another look, and it was pitch black. And that aligned with what my husband and I had experienced just a few weeks earlier, where we'd been traveling on this coastal road, which took about 2.5 hours late at night, and we'd seen this entire valley lit up, and had seen a UFO cruise up the hill towards us, and then I didn't remember any more. And that's yet another experience. So, I started talking to these people, writing down what they said, looking at the characteristics, seeing how it had affected them, and eventually in the 80s and late 80s, some of the people who'd had contact experiences early on in New Zealand, like myself, went public. And at the time, I'd met a few of them through another lady, and I had to make the decision whether I wanted to go public at that time or not. And I decided not to. And I was very glad that I did, because it wasn't my role to do that at that time. Would have been too soon. And it probably would have messed around with some of the research that I was trying to do, interviewing people. I would have been labelled. So I left coming out about my experiences till a bit later in 97.
What did you, as you start this journey of research, and then you look at the history of the area, including not only New Zealand, but Australia, and, Westall and Valentich, and these, the deep history of contact throughout that entire region. What did that tell you about your experience? And then, of course, did it help your husband come along? Did he eventually jump in the car with you?
No, he didn't. That's my former husband.
That's why I wanted you to say that, but that's usually the case, isn't it?
Yes, sadly, very often it is. And I think we just started going in different directions, me with this subject. And like many experiencers, and people who've witnessed a sighting, once it's happened, you can't put it down. You can't walk away from it. You can try and you can achieve that for some time, but then something drags you back to it again. And I never tried to walk away from it. I just was so curious that that I was quite happy to get involved in it. But Australia and New Zealand have I suppose the States, of course, we have a lot of remote areas. But, if you wanted to hide out and have a base somewhere, New Zealand would be a pretty good place. It's right out of the way at the bottom of the planet, and sparsely populated, certainly at that time. So there was a lot going on in New Zealand at that time in the late 70s and early 80s. And I actually feel very fortunate that I was in my late 20s and 30s going through that period of time and witnessing so many of these events.
Yeah. Now, I want to switch gears just a little bit, but it applies to what you just said. Mm-hmm. With the revelations that have surfaced lately, and that includes David Grush, but also the Wilson Davis document, I think is very important. Again, Australia played a pivotal role in the reveal of that document. But the reverse engineering programs that have been ongoing for decades, and when these revelations started to go public recently over the last couple of years, it seems to me that if I'm the United States, and if I'm Lockheed Skunk Works or Northrop Grumman or General Electric, whoever, AT&T, whoever is Bell Labs, whoever is involved in these projects is going to get the stuff out of the United States. You're going to send it to New Zealand, right? You're going to send it to Australia. You're going to send it over the border into Canada, where it's away from the snooping journalist and the UFO community here in the United States. Do you think that is the case, that there is a cooperation between New Zealand and the United States, and that's a way to keep things secret because New Zealand is completely remote and isolated?
Yeah. Well, I don't know about secret agreements. I can only speculate on that. But, I have wondered about that myself, Jimmy, considering the amount of triangles, for example, that we've seen in New Zealand and other unusual craft also seen in Australia. I'm very close to a number of colleagues in Australia. We've been longtime friends working together. And often we will get a sighting just before them, and then they'll say, have you seen this? Yes, we've got those being reported here, and vice versa. So you have these little bouts where something appears in our skies for a while and then disappears. Now, is it ET or is it reverse engineering? Well, the whole reverse engineering technology thing is kind of close to my heart. It's a bit scary talking about it because I've been threatened a number of times, and I nearly lost my life in 2018 because I talked about alien technology. But from what I have seen on board craft, I've seen technology that at the time, 2-3 decades ago, I didn't understand, of course. We didn't have anything like that, but I was able to describe it at that time. I've still got the videos and DVDs of me doing that. And the likeness to some of the technology that's has come out now is extraordinary. So, are we following the same kind of scientific discovery as the ETs? I don't think so, because they are so far advanced. How could we suddenly do this big catch-up and come out with this technology that's some of the stuff that's coming out today so quickly? The mind boggles about it. And in my speech at the UFO Congress in 2018, I presented a number of pieces of technology which we are either only just beginning to develop or have recently developed in, say, the last 10 or 15 years. And these were things I saw 30 and odd years ago.
Well, so, take us, Susie, if you can, take us through some of that so the audience and we have an understanding of what you're referring to.
Okay, well, in the early 90s, I had an onboard craft experience and this is the one experience, and I have very good memory of many of my experiences, but this one I remembered in so much detail. It was extraordinary. So the first thing I did was document it. In 1997, I talked at an international conference and I talked about some of this technology. And I have to say, Jimmy, I almost felt embarrassed standing on the stage talking about this because it sounded like fantasy. It sounded like something that could never happen. It was just, magic. People go, oh, that was interesting, but they can't align with it like you can because you've sat on a craft and you've been shown how to use it and you've used it. So some of this stuff was the technology of computer technology and swipe screens and 3D images coming out from the screen, access to something that I now know to be the internet, where I could go anywhere and I could read symbols that took me deeper into the computer. So I didn't have to use a mouse or a voice or anything like that. I just used my mind, and I would go into an icon and I could go deeper and deeper, just as we would do by clicking on icons on a website or whatever. So I nicknamed that depth reading, because we could just keep reading, going into the computer with our mind. We didn't need to touch a thing. So we're now developing a lot of this stuff where you can move cursors, etc., with your mind. People who are disabled are able to do that now. We're still in the junior stages. And then I saw things like beams of light, or beams of energy or something that would come down out of the ceiling in a circle and shine on a body, and you could see your bones within that circle, or you could see all your organs, your vascular system, or whatever, muscular system, at the touch on a screen, or they would just use their mind to talk to their computer, and it would change to a different view of the body, and they could do healing and what we might call operations, etc., using that light. So now in recent years, we've had what we call the vein viewer come out in our technology, which is used for to help nurses, etc., find veins in the body. When people have veins that collapse, they can find them easily. And we're also now producing, which a medical scientist came up and spoke to me at the 2018 Congress and talked about how he was now selling what had been developed as a machine that could look into the body and could help specialists who have, there's been a bleed in the body after an operation, and they were able to find the bleed quickly. But really, this was brilliant technology for humanity, but it was really archaic compared to the version of it on craft. And what I pointed out in my speech was that it seems to me there's been a lot of kind of back-engineered technology that's been coming out. So someone's making some money out of it, someone owns it, and people like me, an experiencer who talks about it and makes this link, is threatened and told to be quiet or has an attempt on their life. So there's a lot of stuff, really nasty stuff going on in the background here. And at present, we have people wanting to talk to experiencers and find out what they know about these kinds of things, while at the same time, they're not given publicly credibility for knowing these things.
Why? What do you think ultimately the agenda is? And I only ask that because, in a general sense, it is my belief and understanding that there is a lot of different cultures visiting this planet. The universe is a big place, and there's a lot of life out there. So, who is revisiting? Because there's got to be a lot of single drive-bys, right? Okay, yeah, cool place, on to the next planet. But then there's the agenda part of it. What do you think the reason for that is?
Well, yes, it's probably true that there's any amount of ETs visiting us, because as we said before, everybody's experiences of contact can be different, and there's so many different varieties that have been described. But as I said, there are some common descriptions that come up, including greys, mantids, etc. So, from my understanding as an experiencer, there's a bit of a conglomerate of species who are working together on an agenda to try to help us to evolve to a point where we can have open contact with them. And this would necessitate upgrading our institutions, some of our laws, and upgrading our technology. And they can help us to do all of that, but until we become probably much more spiritual than we are now, and there's less wars happening on the planet, that's not likely to happen. So a lot of people are hoping that, they're going to come down and land and talk to us very soon once disclosure takes place. But I think that we will have quite a longer wait than that.
Why is it, Susie? Why is it that so many just want somebody else to fix our problems, that we want ET to show up and just like, magic wand and fix everything that we've managed to screw up ourselves.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just human nature, isn't it? It's just one of those traits that we have. If we get ourselves into a hole, we want someone to help us, because we haven't worked out that the hole might be there before we actually started doing what we're doing. And it's just human nature, I guess, and desperation, and also a little bit of, well, I don't want to do the work myself, but I'm hoping someone else will come and do it. And of course, they're not going to, because as the old school teacher, I can tell you that if you feed information to kids and don't teach them what it means and how to go about it, they don't learn anything much. They have to learn to do something themselves, to discover it and to understand it fully. So we really are in a juvenile state on the planet if we can't fix a few things for ourselves. And until we show that commitment, I doubt very much that they would be interested in coming down en masse and meeting us. They've told me and many other experiences that we have to develop more spirituality, that we're basically going backwards in terms of spirituality. And it's interesting to note that much of their technology is based on frequency and consciousness.
100%.
So if you haven't got a very good frequency because you're a bit of a bad person, you don't stand a chance of understanding new technology. And that's just the way it is. We're pretty juvenile if we look around the world and at the planet at the moment and think that that's okay and that someone can come and fix a few things and it'll all be all right again, because it won't be. Scientists are telling us we're in a very bad situation, and I think on some level most of us know that ourselves, but we have to decide.
There is no free ride. There isn't. There is no free ride. Everything that I have built, everything that right, I did myself. Right, I didn't win the lottery. ET didn't come down and you know what I mean? No. And that's the only way to evolve as a person, as an individual, is to get things done yourself. And that includes technology, and that includes consciousness, right? And evolving and all of that. You do that yourselves. ET is not going to come here and give us all of that. Those are things we have to learn ourselves and appreciate ourselves, right?
Yeah, I think that people, they look upon the planet and they think, wow, there's bad things happening and food scarcity and this and that. The ETs can come and fix that, but they're just ignoring the fact that what needs to be fixed is us. Our behaviors, our attitudes, everything about us, we have to reassess and fix before we can begin fixing the rest of the things that we've made a mess of. And I think that a lot of people don't think that far. And also I think a lot of people think of ET in some kind of magical, mystical sense, a bit like some of the movies. And it's not like that at all. Standing beside an ET is an awestruck kind of feeling inside you. You get used to them, but for most people, first time it would be a shock, a real shock, because their frequency and what they emanate is so powerful. So, we don't even think about things like that. We just think about the selfish side of what they can do for us, and we don't think about what we need to be doing for ourselves.
Well, yes, I agree with that. But there's also another part that is not discussed. Earth kicks ass too. Now we've messed it up. We messed up a lot of things for sure. But if you look back in history, right now, things are pretty good. Things are pretty friggin' good. This isn't the Black Plague, right? This isn't, we're not in the middle of World War II. how many 80 million people. When you think about it, I don't know what the numbers are. I ran the numbers once. It was like, now think about where we are today. World War II is like 3,000 people died every hour. Right? It's like, what? So yeah, we've got some issues now. We've got global warming, we've got overpopulation, and whatever, the pandemic. Okay, that's part of it. It really, this is a pretty cool planet, and ET has got to look and go, yeah, they're a little screwed up, but it's pretty nice down there. Right? Right?
Yeah, there is that, but the attitudes are pretty strong in a lot of people. And also, coming from New Zealand, I know only too well what the Earth changes are like. We're called the Shaky Isles. We've got a lot of we've got volcanoes and seismic activity, same as some of the South American countries. And interesting to say that one of the most stunning and shattering experiences I had on a craft was with being in an auditorium with 250 people and being shown a massive screen, being told that they were going to show us some images that would be shocking, and we were to prepare ourselves for that. How do you prepare yourself for that?
What did you see?
Well, they started the images off really slowly, like one every so many seconds, and then they sped them up until there were many every second, and it was just a blur on the screen. But we had been taught to register over the years, register the frequency of those images, not necessarily register every single feature of each image. So they were starting off looking at them. They were shocking Earth changes happening around the world. We were told it was futuristic. They said it would happen eventually, and that people needed to be preparing for survival. They went through several sessions of these big auditorium speeches over a period of time, which I document in the latter part of my book. And it was pretty shattering looking at this. Everybody was exhausted and shattered with tears streaming down their faces. And then one of the ETs just stepped forward, and he just put this, with his mind, he just put this consciousness blanket of calm over everyone so that we could then discuss and talk about what we'd seen and what the future might hold without the emotional content dragging us down and making us tearful. So I guess
okay. Let me ask you right there. This is were they showing you our future or the possibility of the future, and we have the opportunity to change things and not experience that? Yes. And, do you understand?
We were being shown the potential of what could happen, was likely to happen. Some of it would happen, we were told, but we were also told that depending on how much we developed spiritually as a civilization in the meantime, because this is 2 or 3 decades ago, a couple of decades ago, we would minimize the impact on the planet. And this immediately hit home to me of mass consciousness and the effect of mass consciousness on Mother Earth. Mind over matter. So the more we evolve, the less wars we have, the more we begin to cooperate, and the more spiritual we become as a civilization, the less impact there will be. It takes a bit to get your head around that, actually. Some people will go, oh, that's rubbish, or that doesn't make sense. But that's what we were shown. And when you think about it, it does make sense.
Yeah. Did you get the impression that ET was sharing their own evolution and experience with us, that they went through these things in order to evolve, and so they're giving us advice? That's what happens when a mentor gives you advice, right? They went through something and they don't want you to go through the same thing.
Well, a lot of experiencers talk about that, and a lot of people, make that statement that they're talking that they're not wanting us to go through what they've been through. But for me personally, that they've never said that to me. I've never been in an auditorium with a lot of people where they've said this happened to us and we're trying to warn you. It's never been anything like that. It's been, this is the way it is. This is what you need to be doing. And you guys need to get out there and talk about this and get people to take notice. And you've got, you've got chances coming up and you need to make the most of them. And incidentally, some of those auditoriums full of people that I saw on these very large craft, for example, I witnessed one which was all scientists. And they had been brought on craft in an altered state, so they didn't really know where they were.
Right.
But they were aware they were in an auditorium with other scientists. They didn't seem to measure that there were ETs in front of them and humans in front of them doing the talking. They were just accepting it, listening to it. They were able to discuss it, etc. And they were all given what we very commonly call thought seeds or downloads into the mind or into the consciousness that would open up in the future. So at certain times, those scientists will have this epiphany of information and be able to utilize it, either in something that they're working on or in a way to assist with survival of humanity.
Fascinating. Susie, stay right there. We're going to take a quick break. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. This is Jimmy Church. Please visit and explore Egypt this October 3rd through the 14th, 2024 with Billy, Elizabeth, myself, and very special guest and the #1 podcaster in the world, Sean Kelly. It's simple to do. Just go to forbiddenknowledge.com and click on upcoming tours or click on the link below. We'll see you there. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. And right now, if you get a Game Changer membership for a limited time, you will get Fade to Black Blend coffee with your Game Changer membership. That's right. We have 2 t-shirts. We have the original, the classic Fade to Black t-shirt. You know you want one. Post a picture, send it to us. We'll put it in our Fade to Black gallery. And we've got the new official Fade to Black t-shirt drawn by Michael Oming. 2 t-shirts, 2 ways to get them. Get yours today. Everything is in stock. Everything gets autographed. Everything includes shipping. And you're going to get a tracking number. And with a Game Changer membership, you get an email to me. You get unlimited commercial-free downloads of the show. Those are uploaded every single night after the show to the website. So don't delay. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Backley Tappy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Suzy Hansen is with us live from New Zealand. And I'm reminded of, Suzy, of Dr. Carla Turner. And in speaking with you, and when I would listen to her information, it was so revealing, and it's something that people need to focus on. And I see the same thing in you. And I want to go back. You talk about 1993 and your training and the use of technology. Can you address that a little bit for us and what that training involved?
Okay. While I was brought on board a craft with other people, and we were ushered into a room that was reasonably small and with lines of what we would call computers lined up across the room. So 16 of us, we each had this console to sit at. We would put our hands on a rubber pad that connected us to that computer with our aura, I suppose, or electric field. We were told by the greys that were standing up the front, who were in charge, that they wanted to put us to a test using the technology. So it became clear that we would all be given a task to do using the technology. The tasks would all be different. We'd all have something different, but they'd all be equal in terms of their difficulty, etc. And it wasn't that they were looking necessarily for the right answer from the task. They were looking at testing how we could use this technology. So if I just stop there and examine that bit, if you come forward to today, we now have some of that technology that we were using with swipe screens and all that kind of thing. But what is always missing is the consciousness element. And this is what the guys trying to develop stuff, if it's from back engineered or whatever, they're trying to ascertain how that consciousness aspect works, and they haven't got it yet, that unless it's happening in secret and we don't know about it. So
it seems to me that our next stage of our evolution would be just that, right? It would be consciousness, because we've taken technology as about as far as we can take it, right? Smaller, faster, better, but it's still atoms, it's still particles, it's still physical. That it's consciousness that we need to focus on now.
Yes, that's right. And I sort of lost my train of thought. So what we did was we sat there and we had a download. We were each assigned a small short grey who came and stood beside us and took it about a minute and a half, and we had an information transfer in which we were given a great deal of information and data pertaining to our particular individual task. And then we had to set about using the computer and the data to come to a conclusion. And this is where I first saw what I nicknamed an information tablet. And what have we got out there now? We've got tablets. And this was in the early 90s. There were no home computers in New Zealand then. I'd never used a computer in my everyday life. It was only institutions like hospitals and maybe our legal system that had some early computers. It wasn't a common thing in New Zealand at all. Never used one, never seen one, never touched one, only on craft. And it's interesting to notice that that I have always maintained, and I think I'm probably the only voice out there amongst experiencers who's been saying this since this particular experience, is that I believe that the ETs have been working with someone on the planet to create a bridging technology. So a lot of the technology we used on craft was a little simplified compared to some of their stuff that we observed but didn't use. And I think this bridging technology was designed to train experiencers, see how far we could go, see what we could do with our consciousness. And this also brings in experiences like Jeff Salver and I had in the White Room, which was seeing how far we would go to follow their lead in this consciousness environment. So we were given this task to do. They gave us each something that we would now call a tablet. I described it as looking like a little X-ray sheet. Because it was flexible, we're only just working on flexible computers, etc. now. Flexible tablets, that's going to be our future. So the one that I was given, I could have rolled it up and put it in my pocket. It was flexible. I couldn't see any source of power, but it was powered. It had icons in it that I could think into, and it would change, show me something different, etc. So there was something on this tablet for me to use, and my task was on the tablet. So there was like a star chart, there was a strange solar system, etc. that I was to use in this exam. So then we set about using the technology. We were able to go into the icons on the screen as you would on a website, and in further and deeper and deeper. And you could draw it out into a hologram in front of you and just flick it away, and it was gone. You could read it, flick it, gone, bring up something else, flick it, gone. So that was a technology that I was using on craft in the early 90s. At the end of the test time, they looked at all the work we'd done in terms of utilising all of the capacities that were available to us. And 4 of us had used the most, and I happened to be one of them. So I was actually given this pile of tablets to take to the next floor of the craft, where they would be just cleared like that, shoved into a machine, and they'd be cleared to be reused again with humans coming on board craft, I guess. So they're a bit like a USB kind of thing as well. So in order to get to the next level, I travelled in what I had come to know and experience from childhood as a light elevator, and I nicknamed it liquid light. So you would get into this perspex-like thing, like a shower box, curved. The door would slide open. It was all done with thought. You would get in. You would think the symbol associated to the level you wanted to go to, and the next minute you're there. There's a moment of blackness, and you're there, and you step out. When you step into this elevator, there's no floor. You're suspended in this kind of what I called liquid light. So you've got blue and white sparkles sort of going up and down and up and down, and it feels like velvet on your skin. So I went up to, so that's, the second or third or fourth piece of technology that from this one experience. So I stepped out at the next level, handed over the tablets to this entity behind the console, and then I saw behind her, because I felt it was a female, this screen on the wall in which I was able to see into, it seemed like I was looking into some other room where there was a dome with plants in it, and there was a human, a male and a grey walking together as if they were conversing with their minds. And I observed that, and the female, I asked her what it was all about, and she immediately switched it off, and it just became the wall. So here's the next piece of technology is a 5-function screen. She explained the 5 functions of it to me. And it's interesting to note that some years later, in 2003, when I spoke at a conference with the late Dr. Roger Lear, the night before my speech, we had dinner together at a restaurant, and he was telling me about a US military person who had told him a story about an account about going onto a craft on a secret base, and that he was shown a screen that could become the wall, and it could become a total of 5 functions. And I asked him if I could use that in my speech as corroboration of what I would be talking about. So are we back engineering some of this stuff? Well, I'm quite sure that we are. So I then went down back to the group that I was supposed to be with, and was eventually returned to my home again in a small scout craft. So the next day I wrote all this down because I remembered so much detail. That's just a broad description of it. So much detail, and now, 20, 30 years later, I'm looking at all this technology coming out that I used on a craft in the early 90s. And it's like, how did this happen? And, why am I told to be quiet about this? Go home and don't ever speak about this again, when someone is utilizing their knowledge of this.
Here's what's interesting about everything and I want to go back to the white room, by the way. Let's not, I don't want that to get away from us, is that today, science, physics, which has been discussing this phenomenon for about 70 years now, 60 years, 50 years, that you can change the state of a particle by looking at it. Now, it's like, stop right there. Either, and I'm talking about the scientists out there, right? Either this is crazy town, or you're saying that telepathy is real, right? That consciousness is connected, that the phenomenon of entanglement is so much science fiction, but you're telling us that this is real. And then you share your experience with us, and it's exactly what the physicists of the world are trying to tell us today, what is going on. This isn't crazy town. This is where we are at right now, isn't it? Yeah.
And talking about consciousness, and I'll just quickly tell you about something I experienced, which is going in my next book. I was on a craft with a group of humans. We were ushered into quite a narrow room. We sat on one side in a row of chairs, and then these hybrids came in, and they sat opposite us. They were absolutely beautiful. They were spectacularly graceful and gracious.
How do you know they were hybrids?
Because we were told, but not only that, we could see that they weren't like the standard greys that you might see on a craft for a very long time. I saw these later in my life, and they are very different. That you can sense the humanness in them, but you can also sense the ETs and what I call the rootstock of the greys in them.
Were you freaked out? Were you freaked out, or were you comfortable?
No, they were like young teenagers or older, slightly older. I was in awe of them because they seemed so intelligent and they seemed so pure and, just beautiful souls. Anyway, they sat there and we were told that they would like to ask us questions because they wanted to see how far they could move us with the telepathy, what they could do with us humans who'd been trained over many years since childhood using this telepathy. So they began asking questions very politely, telepathically. We replied telepathically. And then they started to speed it up. And it was like a feeling of, oh, gosh, can I keep up with this? They kept speeding it up and speeding it up and speeding it up until there were no questions and no answers anymore. And I called it the hum. And it was this beautiful feeling of as if everybody's minds had joined into one ball of consciousness. No questions, further questions needed to be asked because all of the answers were already known. And I called it the hum. And there was just this feeling of being part of each other and knowing everything about each other. And then it finished and we were back to normal again. And it was an extraordinary experience.
When do you think consciousness is going to be the conversation that we are going to have? And that is in school, that is with science and everything else. And the reason why I ask is I have this Pandora's box, Susie, and this is the Pandora's box because I love technology. Look at my studio. Look at my world, right? I just love technology. It's great. But I have this Pandora's box, and that ET shows up, okay, all right, and comes down and says, we don't use math, right? That's old school. Right? Don't worry about gravity. Don't worry about physics. Don't worry about the speed of light. That's not how we do it anymore. And I think that would freak us out more than just about anything else, right? That it's about the mind, it's about consciousness and the connectivity of the universe. That is where your future is. And that's my Pandora's box. The planet needs it.
I love your way of thinking, Jimmy, because I agree. On one occasion on a craft, a group of us were being shown how to work with the technology of looking into the body with our psychic eye, if you want to call it that, with our consciousness. And he started by the instructor, the Grey, started by saying, forget everything you know about medicine, about medical things, about techniques, all the stuff you know, forget all of that. Forget it. Because we're going to be working with the body and health and healing, but we're just going to be using frequency and consciousness in your mind. So it's like the white room, which we haven't talked about yet, but consciousness is kind of everything. And
that's our next stage.
As I got older and older, as many experiences will testify, the things you're exposed to become higher frequency. The technology changes. Some of the things I've seen in more recent years, I actually haven't talked about yet because I don't think people are ready to hear it or would want to hear it. Of where this is going.
Susie, it's our next stage of evolution.
Absolutely.
We've gone as far as we can go, right? Yep. We need to go there. If you remember in the Wilson Davis document, it's all interesting. It's all great. But on this one page, when Admiral Wilson says he comes out here, we assume it was Lockheed Skunk Works, which is right down the street here from where I live, by the way. And he says that, the guys from Lockheed, there was 3 of them. They go, we have a craft. You want to see it? It's right over here. We think it can fly, but we just can't do it yet. And that's exactly what we're talking about, right? Mm. It's not going in and pressing the engine start button, right? Take it off. No, there's something else there that needs to be applied that ET certainly would be interested in. Who on this planet has the capacity to start throwing their consciousness around?
Mm. Well, Grant Cameron has written a book about experiencers who've flown scout crafts, and I was one of the people he wrote about. And I have flown a scout craft using the mind. It was also shown how to use a lever to fly it under certain circumstances within our atmosphere.
Wait. Pump the brakes there, Susie. They let you drive one.
Yes.
Fly one.
And many experiencers have done the same thing. It's not unique, and by any means, a lot of people have done it. So I was taken on board a very large craft that had a massive hangar area with all different kinds of craft in it, and weighted with a grey, and then these human-like, I guess Nordic-like, 5 of them came walking towards us, and I was told that they were going to take me on a scout craft, and they wanted to see what I could do in terms of flying it, using consciousness to fly it.
Wow. What do they do? Like wave the keys? Are you ready? Right?
Oh, I was ready.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just followed them. We went on this small craft, and they fiddled around with some things. And one of them left, leaving 4 with me. And then they closed what I call the window screens, which is the 5-function screen I talked about before, so that you couldn't see anything. You couldn't feel movement, but they said we were already out of the larger craft and traveling.
So you weren't going to hit anything, right?
No, I wasn't flying it at that point.
Oh, okay. So, all right.
When they next opened the window screens, there was a vista in front of me, such as we don't have in New Zealand. So I knew I was far away from New Zealand in a very short time. So there were these beautiful autumn leaves in bright gold and orange and red. We don't have whole massive hillsides looking like that in New Zealand in autumn, just the odd few. So I knew I was probably in the Northern Hemisphere somewhere, maybe Canada, USA, Finland, who knows. So then they told me that they would the guy in charge said he would demonstrate 2 different ways and give me a chance to try it.
Oh, man. How cool is that? Okay, what happened?
Well, he showed me the using the little lever, and it's interesting to notice that this one little lever would popped up out of the console. The screen of the computer next to me in front of a female scientist was 3D, so I could see the craft hanging there in air with topography around it, and I was told how to watch that, observe that. But they simply just gave me the opportunity to move it forward, go a little bit faster and move it forward. And that's pretty much all I did, but I still flew it. So I was shown how to use the lever and the circumstances under which we should use that within the atmosphere. And I thought I'd be quite good at that because I've done a bit of glider flying, with the joystick, and I thought that would be okay. But I found it wasn't actually okay at all, and I kind of rolled it to one side, and I had to correct it for me. So then he talked to me about how to fly it with the mind, which was a very different thing. You put your hand on the pad, rubbery pad, you connected yourself to the consciousness of the craft. So you then, it's as if you become part of the craft. Your every thought or movement is part of the craft. So then I had to use the control of my mind to follow what he had instructed to me to do, moving it forward. And it's not like you say, craft, move forward. It's as if your whole beings is saying, frequency-wise, moving forward. It's kind of like that is the best way I can explain it. And I found that was much easier, and I was surprised. And he said to me, well, using the consciousness, it bypasses all of those things where the brain has to signal the muscles and the tendons, etc., which all takes time to move through for you to move that lever. You don't have any of that. It's just straight into the consciousness of the craft, and you're going with it. It's happening.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. The manual override is there for the boss standing next to you in case you started to screw up, right?
No. He would have just done that with his mind. The manual was explained to me that was because we have certain weather and we have certain energy anomalies around the planet. I don't know whether the Bermuda Triangle would be a perfect example of that, but he said there's certain weather traits, etc., that they are aware of where it can create turbulence and disturbance, and so that's when they use that. But once again, looking at the technology involved, it's interesting to note that we now have the side stick on aircraft like the 380, Airbus, etc. They use the side stick, and I've worked closely with an air traffic controller and former pilot in UFOCUS NZ, who was one of my right-hand man. And he said, Susie, that's so much like the side stick, which has been developed since, which you can pull up and you can turn it in different ways and it does different things. That's exactly what the little stick on the craft did. You had slight tilt, it would do this, slight drawback, it would do that, etc.
Man, that's fascinating. That's Do you remember
technology again?
Do you remember George Van Tassel?
Yes.
Okay. So when his first experience, right, when he gets woken up and he's at Giant Rock with his wife and he goes outside and he sees this craft there and there's a guy standing there and the guy, they talk for a minute and he's like, hey man, you want to take a ride? Yeah, I do. Well, of course you do. Right. So they go and they take a ride. But what Van Tassel described, and this was 1950. Okay. So if you go back to 1950 and look at the movies or the way things were described or portrayed as advanced technology, right? Big gauges, like, big levers and switches and it's alive, these, things like that. And Van Tassel didn't describe the inside of that craft at all like that. He described flat screens, right? Yeah. Television sets back then. No, that's not what he described. Mm-hmm. And he didn't describe big levers and switches. No, it was a very clean. Mm-hmm. And I always found that so compelling that he didn't describe he didn't describe the bridge of the Titanic. You know what I mean? Or the inside of a military plane. That's not what he. Very
simple.
Yeah. It was the future, and it's the way that I look at things today. I go back and listen to Van Tassel as I'm listening to you right now, and there are similarities there because you're describing a technology that wasn't around back then. Mm. And it was the same thing with Van Tassel. as we move into this. I've only got, and I did this with regression. I was hypnotized by Sarah Breskman Cosme. We did it for television, and this memory was revealed to me. Now, I didn't know anything about it, right? And now it's unlocked, and I can see it. My room was black. Okay, wasn't white, and no windows or anything like that. But again, the beings that were there, the personnel, whatever you want to call them, were all working. They were looking down and they were working. But I wasn't freaked out. Okay, I wasn't. I wasn't freaked out. It was a very natural, normal thing to experience. But I didn't see the edges of anything. It was all black, right? I can't describe. There was no medical exam table, and I was only there for a short while, but it was black. And I don't know the size of it. I know the grouping of everybody that was working. Maybe they were at the edges of the walls. I don't know. I couldn't see beyond that. But it was black. It was very interesting. So I'm very intrigued about your white room experience. So take us through that if with the time that we have left.
Okay. Well, I was on board a large craft. I was taken into a room where some other humans were brought in as well. There were 8 of us all together, and we were told by a grey that we were going to have a experience with consciousness, and they hoped that we would be able to participate. That was their hope, that we would be able to participate, and they would be observing how far into that participation we could go. So we were taken down a corridor and into another room, which was quite small. And when I turned and looked at the archway, the arched doorway we'd just come through, I noticed that it was like looking through a bead of rain, like a raindrop, and everything behind it was kind of blurry and distorted, and I could see greys moving up and down the corridor, but the detail was lost. It was just, I noticed that, and yet there was no actual door or anything like that. It was just this different environment in this room. So then the grey said that they were going to now prepare the room for this consciousness experience, and the walls seemed to begin to move away from us. So this is a strange thing many experiencers talk about, where a small space can suddenly become much bigger or vice versa. And a craft even can move like that. So we watched as the walls extended in all directions so far that it seemed as if we were just in this glary white space. And if my feet hadn't been touching the floor, I wouldn't have known there was a floor there, because everywhere, floor, ceiling, and the 4 walls had basically vanished. And it was a feeling of flotation, but feeling a floor under you, supporting you. Then out of this massive extended space came a number of entities, different species, different mixtures of the greys, and they came in towards us, roughly the same number, and they then told us that this was their version of recreation, or being able to meld with each other. And before our eyes, they asked us not to be shocked, just to be calm. And before our eyes, their bodies just began to disintegrate into a dust. And they said that they would colour that dust so we could track the progress. So their bodies just disintegrated like into tiny little coloured atoms or whatever. I'm not a scientist. And they just began to swirl around the room. So you've got one grey figure here. He just disintegrates into a pink shade dust, and he begins to swirl around the room. and the others were doing the same. They then asked us to decide on an object in our mind, and each of them would pick one of those and display it. So, for example, someone said a pencil and someone said a bee, and they were able to reform what was their body, or the atoms, the dust of their body. They were able to reform it into that shape. So we were really confused as to what all this was about. But as they were doing this, the lead grey was talking to us. We could still hear his voice, even though his body had vanished into a mist of color.
Can I jump in for just a quick second? The communication that you're referring to, was it verbal?
It was telepathic.
It was telepathic. Okay, yeah. Got it. Okay, so moving on. His
body had disintegrated into this mist. He was still conversing with us through consciousness.
Right, gotcha.
Consciousness was operating. So they began emanating this feeling of intense love towards us. The whole atmosphere within this room became completely euphoric and full of love and the feeling of oneness. Without using that word tritely, it was truly oneness. And then they began inviting us, asking us to let ourselves go, to relax, let ourselves go, because we can do this too. And we were all crying. We had tears running down our face from the intensity of this feeling of love. But none of us could actually do it. As try as we may to relax into that, releasing that form of consciousness, we couldn't do it. So they, swirled around all around us, letting us enjoy what they said was their relaxation, their enjoyment was this euphoric feeling through consciousness. And then they all reformed into the bodies again. And there was a brief conversation, a brief settling time, brief bit of explanation. They thanked us very much for participating and attempting to participate further, and we were taken out of the room.
Now, how do you not, after an experience like that, how do you not just go, I'm losing my friggin' mind, right?
Well, from an early age, when you've been experiencing this for a long time, I think from childhood and in my 20s, when so many things were happening, and there was evidence that was presented to me from some of my friends and that who had seen evidence of things happening, and I could explain that if you wanted. I knew I wasn't losing my mind. I was operating quite nicely, thank you very much, as a intermediate and secondary school teacher. So I knew I was perfectly normal. I was on lots of committees, had children, was leading a normal life. And I was meeting people who had similar experiences. And when I began speaking in Australia in the year 1999, that's when I met a lot more people like me and began to feel a lot more secure in what I was experiencing. And those people are lifelong friends, experiencers and researchers in Australia. And they've really been wonderful to me here in tiny little New Zealand, including me in their UFO fraternity, really.
Have you... I think my daughter's a hybrid, by the way. I look at her and I go, if there's a hybrid, it's my daughter. But anyway, Nicole, I love you. I say that in jest, not really. But have you can you identify a hybrid? Can you walk down the street and go, aha? And do you give them a little nod, or have you not experienced that yet?
I have experienced it. A hybrid actually kept me working in the subject when I was going to step out of it. So in 1999, I spoke in at the old Congress in Laughlin in the States. And afterwards, I was bailed up in my room by two people who I was later told were agents of some sort. And they had threatened me and told me to go home and never talk about these things again. They knew about my family. They knew about my children. There was a lot of stuff they knew about me, and it was very intimidating. So I was worried about my kids and my husband, and I decided I would go home and not do this anymore, even though I'd just really started. So my husband and I got into a vehicle that picked us up from a hotel to take us down to the rental car company. And the lady who picked us up, there was a strange guy in the front seat, and she didn't ever talk to him. But in the entire short journey to the building, she only talked to us. It was as if he wasn't there. We thought about that later. When we arrived at the building, she said, "I'll go in and start getting the paperwork ready. So bring your bags in when you're ready, and then I'll show you to your vehicle." And I was feeling pretty low and pretty bad about what had happened. And this guy stayed in the car. It was a very warm day in Nevada, and he had on like a woolen turtleneck and warm clothes. His head was completely bald with a few wisps of white hair. And he turned to look at me. I was sitting behind him, and as he turned his head, it strangely swiveled right around like a robot. And he had the most extraordinary china blue eyes, like many hybrids. And he looked at me, and he spoke telepathically. And he said, "We always look after our own." And
sounds like you're describing Stephen Bassett.
And then he got out of the vehicle and walked rather strangely with a bit of a limpy walk to the few feet to the door and went through it. Mm-hmm. And I said to my husband, "Quick, we've got to talk to him." So we raced in after him to try to see who he was and talk to him, and we couldn't find him. It was a circular building with desks around one side of the circle and people milling around, sitting on seats. We went into the toilets. He wasn't in there. He wasn't in the building. We asked people, and people said nobody came through that door until you did, after the lady who brought you here. So when he went through that door, he disappeared. But after he did that to me, I decided I would carry on with my work, and I would not be fearful.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. I hear you. I don't know what it is about Laughlin. When I left there 1 year, driving back to California, right? It's not that far from where I live. It's a 4-hour drive. And so I leave, and I had like a half a tank of gas. So I knew that I could get into California and get a pretty good run in before I had to stop for gas. And I'm on the freeway for about, as I leave Laughlin, there's a black SUV following me. Not thinking anything about it, right? I leave Laughlin, I turn around, get on the free, and this thing stays on my tail for 2 hours. And I shoot a video. I'm just like, he's still behind me. And I ended up pulling. The point is, Laughlin is of interest. The people that go to those conferences out there are used to back then, UFO Congress and everything. That was a very important conference. And I think that both hybrids and all of the 3-letter agencies, the Men in Black, they were all there. They were all attending. Yeah. What a fantastic conversation tonight, Susie. Where can everybody reach out to you?
Well, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on YouTube, Suzy Hansen channel, Susie Hansen on Facebook, and I have a website for sightings, New Zealand sightings, which is UFOCUSNZ.org.nz, and CommunicatorLink.com for advocacy for experiencers and abductees. So I can be contacted on Messenger or WhatsApp or whatever.
Thank you so much. And when you finish the new book, I can't wait for the next conversation. Just thank you so much. And we've got the links for Susie below in the description over on our website and also on social media. Susie, be safe out there.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much. What a perfect night on the show. Thank you so much, Suzy Hansen, live from New Zealand. And again, the links for Susie are below. We've got them right there. UFOCUSNZ.org NZ. It's right there. CommunicatorLink.com and ICER.pt. The links are below. All right. And tomorrow night is Bigfoot night here on Fade to Black. And so you're not going to want to miss that. It's Bigfoot and cryptids. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Jonaside. Where's Dex? Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. Until tomorrow night, I want you to be safe. Go Beckley Tappy.